Antarctica is the only continent on Earth that has never had a single indigenous person living on it. The only landmass on Earth with no native people, locked behind an international treaty. No cities, no ancient tribes, no history of human habitation, ever. And yet, in 1959, 54 nations, including bitter Cold War enemies who were pointing nuclear missiles at each other, sat down together and signed a legal agreement to control it. Not to protect it, to control it. Now ask yourself, you need a treaty to protect a place from people. But if no people have ever lived there, what are you protecting it from? Here is the part that changes everything, buried inside that treaty, in a specific provision that no government has ever publicly explained in plain language, is a clause that reveals exactly what this is really about. Not science, not peace, something else entirely. Something else entirely. By the end of this video, you will understand why Antarctica is the most restricted, most surveilled, and most deliberately misrepresented piece of land on the planet, and why that clause, the one I will show you before we are done, is the key to understanding all of it. The Antarctic Treaty was signed on December 1st, 1959, in Washington, D.C. 12 nations put their names on it first. Today, 54 nations have signed, almost a third of every country on Earth, all agreeing to a shared set of rules about one single place. One single place. What are those rules? Article 1. Antarctica shall be used for peaceful purposes only. No military operations. No weapons testing. Article 2. Freedom of scientific investigation. Article 5. No nuclear explosions. No disposal of nuclear waste. These sound reasonable, almost noble. But here is what the treaty does not say. It does not say what previous expeditions found there. It does not explain what prompted the urgency, and it does not answer the most obvious question. Why, in 1959, at the height of the Cold War, when the United States and the Soviet Union could not agree on the shape of a table, did both superpowers decide that this one frozen continent was the one place they would cooperate? Two nations at the brink of nuclear war agreed to share one continent. That alone should make you pause. That is not diplomacy. That is mutual fear wearing a diplomatic suit. But what were they afraid of letting the other side have first? The answer begins with a fact that almost no one thinks about. But this next part is what makes Antarctica truly unique and deeply suspicious. Every continent on Earth has indigenous people. Africa, Asia, the Americas, Europe, Australia, even the most remote Arctic islands, places far more hostile than most environments on Earth, have had human populations for thousands of years. Antarctica has had zero, not because people never tried to explore. Humans have been remarkable travelers for tens of thousands of years, reaching islands thousands of miles into open ocean on nothing but wooden boats. The closest landmass to Antarctica is the tip of South America, roughly 1,000 kilometers away. Polynesian navigators crossed triple that distance, and yet no ancient human civilization ever settled there. Historians point to the extreme cold. Antarctica averages minus 57 degrees Celsius in winter. That is a legitimate barrier. But here is the question nobody asks. If no humans have ever lived there, then the treaty is not protecting any people's rights. It is not protecting any cultural heritage. It is not safeguarding any community. So what is it protecting? If this is the first time you have thought about Antarctica this way, hit like and subscribe, because we are just getting started. What is buried under that ice is more valuable than most countries' entire economies. And that is the next part. Stop and think about this for a second. Antarctica is not just ice. It is a resource vault sitting at the bottom of the world, and the scale of what is inside that vault is almost incomprehensible. Start with water. Antarctica holds approximately 70% of all the fresh water on Earth, locked inside an ice sheet up to 7 kilometers thick. In a world where fresh water access is already driving geopolitical conflict, that number alone is worth more than any oil field currently in production. And there is what lies underneath the ice. Geological surveys, many of which remain classified, indicate Antarctica contains some of the largest untapped deposits of coal on the planet, iron ore reserves comparable to the biggest active mines in Brazil and Australia, and offshore oil and gas deposits estimated by the United States Geological Survey at 36 billion barrels of recoverable oil. For context, that is more than the proven reserves of Kuwait. And here is the critical detail that changes everything. The Protocol on Environmental Protection, added to the Antarctic Treaty in 1991, bans all mining activity. Not forever, until 2048. Not permanently, until 2048. That deadline is 24 years away. Every nation currently building infrastructure on Antarctica knows exactly what that clock means. But resources alone do not explain the level of secrecy. Something else has been going on. Now, what I am about to tell you is documented, but almost never discussed together. The treaty says Antarctica must be used for peaceful purposes only. No military. Except the largest research facility on the continent is funded by the National Science Foundation and operated by the United States military. McMurdo Station has runways capable of handling military cargo aircraft. It has communication infrastructure consistent with surveillance operations. It houses over 200 personnel during summer. Russia's Vostok Station sits directly above Lake Vostok, the most scientifically significant subglacial lake ever discovered. And its drilling program is conducted by a team with documented overlap with Russia's Federal Geological Intelligence Services. The United Kingdom, Argentina, and Chile all maintain year-round bases staffed in part by active military personnel. None of this technically violates the treaty because of a single word. The treaty bans military presence for military purposes. The personnel are officially there for science. But funded and staffed by defense departments. That distinction between scientific presence and military presence has been stretched so far, it barely holds together. But none of this prepared anyone for what happened in 1946, when the United States sent a full naval task force to Antarctica and came back weeks later in what witnesses described as a state of organized panic. If what I just told you made you uncomfortable, you are not ready for what happened in 1946. Operation High Jump is one of the most peculiar military operations in American history. Admiral Richard Byrd led a task force to Antarctica consisting of 700 troops, 13 ships, including an aircraft carrier, and 33 aircraft. The official mission: extended scientific and geographical exploration. The mission was planned to last 6 to 8 months. Abandoned after 8 weeks. 8 weeks in, Byrd and his forces withdrew without completing stated mission objectives. The files were classified. Then, in March 1947, Admiral Byrd gave an interview to the Chilean newspaper El Mercurio. What he said was remarkable. He warned of threats capable of flying from pole to pole at incredible speeds. He described objects that could render existing military technology obsolete. He said the world needed to prepare, not for an enemy from another nation, but for something coming from a direction nobody expected. The United States government immediately began distancing itself from his statements. Byrd never formally retracted them. He died in 1957, 2 years before the Antarctic Treaty was signed. If you know someone who still thinks Antarctica is just a frozen wasteland of penguins, send them this video right now. Because what Russian scientists found beneath that ice in 2012 suggests Byrd may have been reporting something far more real than anyone admitted. Here is where the story takes a genuinely disturbing scientific turn. Beneath miles of Antarctic ice, there are over 400 liquid water lakes, kept liquid not by warmth from above, but by geothermal heat pressing up from below. The largest, Lake Vostok, is roughly the size of Lake Ontario. It has been completely sealed from the Earth's atmosphere for approximately 15 million years. In 2012, after 20 years of drilling, Russian scientists finally broke through the ice into the lake's water. What they found stopped the scientific community cold: microbial life, completely unknown to science. One organism in particular had no genetic match in any database on Earth, not related to any known bacterium, not related to any known archaea. a biological lineage sealed off from the rest of life on Earth for 15 million years. And it survived. The scientific implications are staggering. If life can persist in a dark, sealed, near-freezing lake for 15 million years with no access to sunlight or outside nutrients, then life can exist almost anywhere. The universe is not only stranger than we suppose, but stranger than we can suppose. Drilling into Lake Vostok is now effectively off-limits. The official justification is environmental protection. 15 million years sealed. But the refusal to investigate further has raised a question that science alone cannot silence. Did they stop drilling because of what they might damage, or because of what they already found? Now forget everything you think Antarctica looks like from above, because what satellite imaging has revealed beneath the surface raises questions that even the scientists studying them describe as deeply uncomfortable. In 2012, the British Antarctic Survey detected what they called a ghost mountain range, a series of peaks buried under 3 kilometers of ice, stretching 500 kilometers across. The Gamburtsev Mountains are the size of the European Alps. They have never seen sunlight. They have been buried since before Antarctica's ice sheet formed, roughly 34 million years ago. Alp-sized buried since before. The strange part is not that they exist. Mountains form naturally. The strange part is the configuration. Unusually regular ridge lines, symmetrical valley patterns. Geologists describe the formations as unlike any mountain range created through known tectonic processes. Meanwhile, NASA GRACE satellite mission, which measures subtle gravitational variations, has repeatedly detected mass concentrations beneath Antarctica that do not correspond to any geological model currently in use. Not small discrepancies. Some of these anomalies are larger than entire mountain ranges, buried formations that do not match any known geology on Earth. The most rational explanation is simply that our geological models are incomplete. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Official science has not rushed to investigate. The restrictions on access have created a knowledge gap, and nature abhors a vacuum. What is filling that gap right now is a geopolitical race that most people have never heard of. Let me pause here because this next part changes the entire picture. The Antarctic Treaty freezes territorial claims. It does not cancel them. 7 nations have made legal territorial claims on Antarctica: Argentina, Australia, Chile, France, New Zealand, Norway, and the United Kingdom. These claims overlap. Some are actively disputed. The treaty says they are on hold, but not one of those nations has formally withdrawn its claim. Now here is the geopolitical reality that almost never makes it into mainstream reporting. China joined the treaty in 1983. Since then, it has built 5 research stations, more than any other nation currently constructing new facilities. China's 5th station, opened in early 2024, sits at a location with significant strategic value. It provides communications relay capability across the southern hemisphere and overlooks key flight corridors between continents. Russia operates the most advanced deep ice drilling equipment on the continent, positioned above the largest known subglacial resource deposits. The United States maintains the biggest year-round logistics infrastructure. In international relations, there are no permanent friends, only permanent interests. 5 stations, 1 mission. The 2048 mining deadline approaches. Each of these nations is positioning itself for the moment the treaty either expires or fractures. This is not science. This is the slowest land grab in human history. And what comes next is the piece that makes all of it suddenly make complete sense. What I am about to tell you is the piece that governments specifically do not want you connecting. Look at the timeline carefully. In 1946, the United States sends 700 soldiers to Antarctica. The mission is abandoned in panic after 8 weeks. In 1952, Britain conducts weapons tests in Antarctic waters. In 1958, just 1 year before the treaty, the United States, Soviet Union, and United Kingdom detonate nuclear devices in the upper atmosphere directly above Antarctica. The operation is called Project Argus. Its stated purpose: to study the effects of nuclear explosions on Earth's magnetic field near the poles. Then, in 1959, those same 3 nations plus 9 others signed the Antarctic Treaty. Control. The official narrative presents the treaty as a triumph of peaceful cooperation. The actual sequence of events tells a different story. By 1958, multiple major powers had independently discovered that Antarctica sits above a combination of resources, geological anomalies, and strategic positions so significant that no single nation could be allowed to claim it. The treaty was not born from idealism. It was born from the mutual terror of what would happen if one nation got there first. The Cold War taught both superpowers that the most dangerous situation is one of absolute strategic advantage. Antarctica represented exactly that potential, and so they locked it behind a treaty, not to keep people out, but to prevent any single power from gaining a monopoly on whatever is hidden beneath that ice. They did not lock it to protect the world. They locked it to protect themselves from each other. Do you believe the treaty is genuine scientific cooperation, or the world's most successful geopolitical cover-up? Comment cooperation or cover-up, because the final piece I promised at the beginning, that is next. At the beginning of this video, I told you there was a specific clause buried inside the Antarctic Treaty that reveals the real reason governments will not give you a straight answer about what is there. Here it is, Article 7. It grants every signatory nation the unconditional right to send inspectors, without advance notice, to any facility operated by any other signatory nation on the continent. On the surface, this sounds like a transparency measure. It reads like an accountability mechanism, something designed to prevent secrets. In 65 years of the treaty being in force, formal inspections have occurred fewer than 50 times, and the inspection reports, which are public record under international law, freely accessible, contain systematic redactions. Not names, not locations, not personnel names, not security details. The redactions are of findings related to geological surveys, electromagnetic readings, and subsurface investigations. The governments are not hiding that there is something there. They are hiding how much of it they have already found, and how little of it they actually understand. The things we don't know are more important than the things we do. Antarctica is not a mystery because it has been ignored. It is a mystery because the people with the most access to it decided, collectively, that a world that does not know what is under that ice is a more stable world than one that does. The most controlled piece of land on Earth is the one they told you not to think about. That is a secret worth 54 nations' signatures, and it is one still being kept right now as you watch this. Think about the full picture you now have. A continent the size of 14 million square kilometers, larger than the United States and Mexico combined, with no people, no history, no politics of its own, holding 70% of Earth's fresh water, sitting above untapped resources worth trillions of dollars, hosting over 400 sealed lakes, one of which contains life that has been isolated for 15 million years, concealing buried mountain ranges that do not match any known geology, and watched over every single day by the military personnel of the world's most powerful nations, all of whom legally agreed to share it, and all of whom are quietly positioning themselves for the moment that agreement ends. 54 nations, one secret. The Antarctic Treaty is often described as humanity's greatest act of peaceful cooperation, and perhaps it is both things at once. Genuine cooperation and the formalization of a shared silence about what lies beneath that ice. As the physicist Richard Feynman once said, the first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. The easiest person to fool is the one who never asks why the door is locked when there is supposedly nothing inside. Antarctica has that door. 54 nations are holding the key, and they have been holding it together for 65 years. If you made it this far, prove it. Comment Ice Vault, because that is exactly what Antarctica is. The truth is stranger than anything you could make up. Subscribe if you want to keep discovering.